telling you what, it's a good day. We're in week 5 of our study through Ruth. How many of you have gone and actually read the book of Ruth? So today you're not really surprised about what's coming. I mean, you know the story. We're both going to be surprised about the sermon because sometimes when I'm up here, I'm hearing it for the first time too. I got notes, I got crayons, I got scribbles, arrows, and stars. I got points 1, 2, and 3. And sometimes God's like, start over. And there will be something that hits me in the middle of this, in the middle of the sermon, that God says, that's the word today. Beep. It was outside. That's the word today. And I got a sense this morning that one word later on in the narrative, cannot. All right, so we're going to just pay attention for cannot. But we are Ruth chapter 4. We are looking at verses 1 through, it says 1 through 12 on the screen. Probably going to do a little more than that. Unless I get long-winded, in which case, buckle up. It's Lily's birthday. I'm not going to work, so you know what that means. 11:55, we'll be out of here for sure. You better laugh. I could be telling the truth. You laugh because you hope I'm lying. Not lying, but... All right. Ruth, chapter 4, verses 1 through 17. We'll see. The author says, Now Boaz had gone up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, the Redeemer of whom Boaz had spoken came by. So Boaz said, Turn aside, friend, sit down here. And he turned and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, Sit down here. So they sat down. Then he said to the Redeemer, Naomi, who's come back from the country of Moab, is selling the parcel of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. So I thought I would tell you of it and say, Buy it in the presence of those sitting here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not, tell me, that I may know. For there is no one besides you to redeem it, and I come after you. And he said, I will redeem it. Then Boaz said, The day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the widow of the dead, in order to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance. Then the Redeemer said, I can't redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption yourself, for I cannot redeem it. Now there was a custom, and this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm a transaction, the one drew off his sandal and gave it to the other, and this was the manner of attesting in Israel. So when the Redeemer said to Boaz, Buy it for yourself, he drew off his sandal. And Boaz said to the elders of the people, You are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech, and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon. Also Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon. I have bought her to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers, and from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses this day. Then all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who's coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you act worthily in Ephrathah and be renowned in Bethlehem, and may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring that the Lord will give you by this young woman. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And he went over to her, verse 13. This is in the Bible, y'all. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife, and he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. Then the women said to Naomi, Blessed be the Lord who has not left you this day without a redeemer, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age, for your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him. Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse. And the women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, A son has been born to Naomi. They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David. So, you guys all know how we got here, from famine in the land to Moab and marriages and death, Elimelech, and I don't want to re-preach the whole sermon. We'll reference back to it as we get there. But last week we left off on the threshing floor. Boaz and Ruth have this rendezvous in the middle of the night on the threshing floor. And I wanted to be very clear. I don't believe anything saucy happened at that moment. And you see here, nothing saucy happened until verse 13, because these are both people of noble character. So they meet at that threshing floor, and they left both early in the morning. Boaz invites her, sleep at my feet until early morning, but before the sun comes up, you got to go because you're not supposed to be here at the threshing floor. And then the text says that she got up and went into the city. But in the Hebrew, it's kind of clunky. They're not really sure to translate it. She got up and went into the city. Could also be he got up and went into the city. But what we see here is Boaz gets up early in the morning too, probably lets Ruth go and get a little bit ahead of him so people aren't talking because, like I said, assumption is the lowest form of communication. Right? You know what happens when you assume, right, Meme? You guys are tracking. So he lets her go, and then he goes behind her, and he sets up at the gate because he knows now, like he's been into her, but he knows that she's into him. So now Boaz kind of gets a little pep in his step to finally make a move on Ruth. So he's going to redeem her. And the process of redemption is laid out in the Old Testament. It's in it's in Deuteronomy 25. Deuteronomy 25. If one of your brothers, if brothers dwell together and one of them dies and has no son, the wife of the dead man shall not be married outside the family to a stranger. His husband's brother shall go into her and take her as his wife and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her, which is to make a baby. So that the child born isn't the heir of the brother. It's the heir. It would be the heir to her dead, his deceased relative. So it'd be like if I die. Okay, I have a brother. I don't know if any, some of you know this. I have a brother. We could not be more opposite people. The way we look, the way we talked, the choices we have made in life. Okay, we are different people altogether. And let's say today wasn't my daughter's birthday because I don't have any kids. This is going to get really gross for you in a minute, okay? I die and I don't have any kids. If this cultural rule still applied, my brother would be responsible to perpetuate my name and lineage to have a child with my wife. Gross. Yes, gross. Because of all the things that having a child entails. Okay, that's the idea here of the Levirate marriage. And God has made this provision possible because the land here is tied to the family. Okay, and it's not just that the provision is for the family to be redeemed, the person. The idea here is that the person is redeemed through the redemption of the land. Okay, that happens in Leviticus chapter 25. So I'm not going to read all of it. I just want you to know this about the redemption of property. God says in his law in Leviticus, "The land shall not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine. For you are strangers and sojourners with me. And in all the country you possess, you shall allow a redemption of the land." That's the point here. The Naomi and Ruth are attached to the land because the land belonged to Elimelech. The land was granted to all the tribes when Joshua came into the promised land and they conquered it and settled it. Okay, so this is the land, the tribe of Judah. So the tribal boundaries of Judah, and Bethlehem is a small podunk little town in Judah. And the verse that everybody knows about Bethlehem is, "But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are least among the clans of Judah, out from you shall come one who shall be shepherd of my people, ruler of Israel." It is a tiny little podunk, middle of nowhere kind of town. But within that town, this man named Elimelech was granted a certain parcel of land. And it was given to him, but it's not his. It's God's. Okay? And it's vital that we see this here, because the whole time that Naomi was gone, we don't know what was going on with Elimelech's land. It could have been that it was fallow and no one was farming it. It could have been that someone was squatting on it. And they wouldn't have had the rights or privileges to do that. But we don't know. And they're going to redeem the land. And when they do, here's where Boaz is super duper smart. Okay? He goes into town, verse 1. I got a little ahead of myself. It's okay. We'll come back around. He goes into town on verse 1 and he sits down at the gate. And it says, and behold, the Redeemer of which Boaz had spoken comes to him. Now, it could be that Boaz knew that after the winnowing and the harvesting, that all of the guys who were at the threshing floor would be coming into the city for whatever reason. But the idea here is it just so happened that morning that Boaz went and sat down at the gate that the man who is ahead of him in line to redeem the land and Ruth comes in along. So it's been all throughout the book of Ruth. It just so happened, the happenstance that happened to happen. As things turned out, it just so happened that where Ruth was gleaning was the field of Boaz the Redeemer. And last week, I hope you guys saw that though there is no miraculous provision, no splitting of the seas and no burning bush and nothing turned from water into wine, that even though God's miraculous hand wasn't evident in supervening nature and establishing something that couldn't have happened any other way, his hand of provision is all over this story. And I've seen miracles in my life. I can count them on one hand probably, the times that I have seen God show up. But it's miracles of I've prayed and he's done something that shouldn't have happened. Okay? I've never had a flooded roadway and as I'm driving down it, let the waters part until my car hit it and the water was displaced. Those types of miracles I've not seen. But I have lived through some horrible, terrible, really bad circumstances and been able to step back one level and see God's hand at work through all of it. And I think that's the testimony more of the folks in this room. Does not mean, okay, here's what I don't want you to hear what I'm not saying. Doesn't mean God doesn't still do miracles. I absolutely believe God does miracles. Like, I believe the work. If the doctors are saying that chemo doesn't do this, only radiation shrinks a tumor, I'm going to go with God on this one, right? You'll never convince me otherwise, right? For those of you who are waiting on health issues, on surgeries, or the recovery, right, of a mom, a mother-in-law, and a sister and a wife, if you're waiting on that, you're not going to stop praying for God to do a miracle, are you? No, you're not. So I believe God still does miracles. But more often than that, I believe God is at work redeeming the circumstances that he allows in our lives for our good and his glory. And that was a big part of what I wanted you to see last week. So here, it just so happens that the Redeemer that Boaz spoke of is coming through the gate at the same time. I don't believe in coincidences. I heard someone say that coincidences happen, and that's when God chooses to remain anonymous. Okay, he just orchestrates things, and it just so happens that, circumstances, God stays anonymous. So, Boaz says to this guy, he goes, "Turn aside, friend, and sit down." Now, we've established Bethlehem is a tiny little town, okay? Boaz had already done the calculations to know that there was someone ahead of him in line to redeem Ruth, to be her kinsman redeemer. Do you think that Boaz didn't know this guy's name? This is the give and take part. So, yes, did he? No, he didn't. Guys, you're killing me. Right? Do you think that Boaz didn't know the name of the guy who was ahead of him in line? No. Of course Boaz knew who it was. He even says that this is to redeem the land of our relative Elimelech. They're probably cousins. But he just calls him friend. And the way it's rendered in Hebrew here, it's kind of what it means, super generic. It's like so-and-so. Okay? It's like, what's his face? When you don't know somebody, or you do know somebody, but you're like, hey, yeah, what's his face over there? Right? We don't do that as Christians ever. Right? Talk about someone and kind of demean their personhood. Like, so-and-so the other day. Could you believe what they did? Because it's like if we say their name, then we give but if we don't say their name, we're okay to gossip or slander or do whatever. I think the reason his name is left out here is for his benefit. I think if they had said, he goes, hey, I'm Boaz, I'm number 2, Frank's ahead of me in line to redeem the land, and Frank ultimately isn't going to do it, and we're going to find out why. But Frank doesn't do it because he's a bad guy. Mr. What's-His-Face. He doesn't do it because he's a bad guy. He does it because he's a practical man. And when the terms of redemption are set, He considers everything and he goes, not my circus, not my monkeys. All right, I'm not doing this. Doesn't fit well for me and my lifestyle, for me and my family. And it doesn't make him a bad guy, it makes him practical. But if they had called him Frank, from the tribe of Judah, from the line of Elimelech or whatever, then Frank's name has the potential to be besmirched and dragged through the mud for the rest of his days. So if we just call him so-and-so, it's what's his face. And it doesn't matter. He just he's like Orpah, he just fades into obscurity, and it's a non-issue. So he says, hey, so-and-so, come over here and sit down. And he takes 10 elders of the city and he sets them down too, because this is how you do a business transaction in a day. You did it at the gate. It was the public square where everyone was around, and they would give witness to the agreement between two people. There wasn't a deed, there wasn't a closing, there wasn't documents to sign. It was the witnesses of 10 men were there, because now if they try to go back on their deal later on, you have 10 people who saw you do what you did. You've got to get all 10 of them to now lie. That's not going to happen, right? This is an honor culture. These are men of integrity. So he sits down with 10 men and he says to the Redeemer, Mr. What's-His-Face, hey, Naomi, remember she came back from Moab. She was there. She left with her husband, 10, 15 years ago. But she came back from Moab, and the parcel of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech, she has to sell it. She's got to get rid of it. So I thought I'd let you know what a stand-up guy Boaz is. Right? He wants it, and he doesn't just want the land, he wants what's attached to the land, but he's got to go through the proper channels. So he goes, I thought I would tell you and say, hey, we're all here, right? All 10 of us. Why don't you buy the land in the presence of the elders and my people? If you'll redeem it, redeem it. If not, tell me, that I may know, because I'm next in line. There's no one else besides me. Or besides you, and I come next. So, this guy knows they're not making any more land, right? And even now today, right? Sam's not here, but there's a line in "O Brother, Where Art Thou?" where he talks about what he's going to do with his share of the treasure when he gets the money. And he says, I'm going to go back and I'm going to buy the family farm back from the bank. He's going to redeem it from the bank. He says, because you ain't no kind of man if you ain't got land. Right? And that was a Great Depression. It holds true today, it holds true back then. They're not making any more land, so this guy knows if I buy this field and add it to my portfolio, I just increase my net worth. Right? That's more land to farm, more crops to harvest, more profits to make. This is exactly what he's thinking. So Boaz is sweetening the pot because he's slick. He knows exactly. And finally, he's gotten over this shy guy syndrome that he had on the winnowing floor. He's finally making the move, and he's the one calling the shots. Boaz is playing chess. He's 4 moves ahead of this guy as he stops him at the gate. Hey, what's your face? Would you come over here? I want to talk business with you. Have I got a deal for you? And then, when the deal's laid out, the guy's like, man, sounds too good to be true. He understands that he has the right from the law, because he's first in line as a kinsman to Elimelech. He has the right to redeem this land. It's his to lose. Then Boaz is like, all you got to do is pay the price. And whatever the price is, we don't know. But the guy's like, I'm in. I want the land. So he has the right to redeem it, and he has the resources to redeem it. Boaz goes, there is a little fine print, however. I got to let you know, it's not just the land. When you buy the land, at verse 4, he says, I will redeem it. Then Boaz says, the day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite. Meg, you're a realtor. You've shown loads of houses, right? Imagine you're showing a property to a family, and you go through the house, and it is their ideal place. Everything, it's a split level, so the kids can live in the basement, the parents can live here, and they never have to see each other. Glorious. Right? It is a thing of beauty. And the house comes with a mother-in-law suite. And when you take them out back to show them the mother-in-law suite, imagine sitting there in a rocking chair is a mother-in-law. And not just that, a mother-in-law who by her own testimony is bitter. Right? So here's Boaz. You want to buy the field? Great. Just so you know, it comes with a bitter mother-in-law. She's not even yours, but she's not having a good life. Right? Comes with and the bitter mother-in-law, you also get her daughter-in-law, and trust me, I met her at the threshing floor the other night. She's a really sweet girl. She's from Moab, though, so she's not one of our people, right? The chess game, the moves that Boaz has set up, paints the picture of this field not necessarily being worth the cost. So though Mr. So-and-so has the right to redeem it and the resources to redeem it, he doesn't have the resolve to redeem it. This isn't for him. He's prioritizing profits over people. Okay? So he looks at this legal transaction and he goes, the juice isn't worth the squeeze on this one. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take it. Because the reason that he acquires Ruth is because he has to perform the rite of Levirate marriage. He's got to be what my brother would be to my wife if I were dead and didn't have any kids. And he's like, not really down for that. Not, in my 5, 10, 15-year plan, this doesn't fit well into, as I'm planning to retire, having a young son who's not my heir, to when he comes of age, I got to take the field that I've been basically leasing from my infant son. Well, not my son, because it belongs to Elimelech. You see how complicated things get? Imagine Thanksgiving in this household, right? Whose house are you going to go to? So, he has the right and the resources, but not the resolve. Boaz says you're going to get this, and the whole point is so that you can perpetuate the name of the dead. So the Redeemer says, on second thought, no, I can't redeem it for myself. I cannot redeem it for myself. We've established he can. It's his to lose. But he says, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance. There's nothing in the law that says that if he were to buy this field and father a child for Ruth to raise and Naomi to be the grandma, there's nothing in the law that says that it would impair his own inheritance. Because all Mr. So-and-so would be doing is leasing the land from his child that he gave away to redeem the name of the dead. You guys tracking? Yeah? Okay. There's nothing in the law that says that would impair his own inheritance. His field would still go to his kids, and everything would be fine. The lines would be drawn clearly, and there's no issue. He goes, take my right of redemption, so the right that I have now, I lay it down. It's all yours, right? Take my right of redemption for yourself, for I cannot redeem it. Again, cannot. It's not true. He is absolutely able, but he's not willing. And the reason he's not willing is because he has counted the cost and the price is too high. Not the physical price, but the long term. He is going to bring into his own home, and he's going to have a very intimate relationship with a Moabite, someone that God has warned them don't have dealings with. Okay, there's a prohibition. Not that you can't marry. Again, it's unwise for them to do this, but they are bad people from a bad place who do bad things as they worship their bad fake gods. He knows all of this. And he says, I cannot redeem it. No, you don't want to, because the cost of bringing all that baggage, a bitter mother-in-law and a Moabite woman, into your house is too much. So this was the custom in times of Israel. To confirm a transaction, a man so-and-so took off a sandal, gave it to Elimelech, everyone washed it, and they go, okay, we got it. That is how Boaz acquires the field. And the difference when you look at the two between Mr. So-and-so and Boaz is Mr. So-and-so saw this just as a legal transaction, right? There's an opportunity, a field to be bought. There's a price to be had. So you pay the price, you get the deed, the field is yours. It's a completely legal transaction. Boaz sees the exact same opportunity, and Boaz completes the entire legal transaction. He has the right now to redeem the field. He has the resources now to redeem the field. But he goes one step further, because the redemption of the field is not just about acquiring the land. The land is secondary to Boaz because he loves Ruth. And this is the beauty that can be, I think, easily overlooked inside this little story. Ruth is a love story, okay? And it's a love story between Ruth and Boaz, but it is a love story for us just the same, because God's love for us is kind of foreshadowed in this instant. We all need a Boaz in our life. We all need someone to redeem our lives. The psalmist says that God redeems our life from the pit. And here's where, for us, God has the right to redeem us. We're made in His image, but we rebelled and we fell away. God has the resources to redeem us, but more importantly, He had the resolve to redeem us. And we'll get down there at the end because it's a foreshadowing of the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ. And the gospel is not just about salvation. Ultimately, that's where it ends. But the gospel is what saved me, the gospel saves me, and the gospel will save me. So it's justification, that's when I was saved. It's sanctification, it's being saved. And it's glorification, I will finally be saved from the power of sin and death when I'm with God in glory. So the gospel here, what we're looking at in Ruth, we see the conversion moment in Ruth 1:16, where you go, I will go, your people, my people, your God, my God, where you lodge, I will lodge, where you bury, I will be buried. That complete identification with Ruth and her people, or with Naomi and her people. What we see from the rest of the book is this progressive sanctification, okay? In chapter 1, Ruth doesn't know God at all. She lives a life in Moab, worshiping Chemosh, sacrificing babies, and apparently she's happy until she meets someone who knows God. And now God breaks into her life, and Ruth sees God at work in the life of Naomi, and it draws her to Naomi. So much so that she turns her back on her old way of life and she identifies herself with God's people. And then she meets Boaz, because it just so happens that the field that she's gleaning in is where she finds provision. It's prevenient grace, the grace that goes before. God gives her the opportunity to have a measure of safety in a world where she had no security whatsoever. And then in chapter 3, you have this deepening of her relationship with Boaz, but ultimately, because it's the hand of God at work in her life, it's progressive sanctification. And I want to tell you a story from my other professional life. This is a prison story. And it's about sanctification being a process. Last week of May, right before I went on vacation, I was making rounds in our special housing unit. So it's 23-1 lockdown. The guy I'm talking to is behind a 2-inch thick steel door, and I'm talking through a gap in the window. He's from the street gang, the prison gang, the Aryan Brotherhood. Have you guys ever heard of the Aryan Brotherhood? They have specials about them on the History Channel. They are white supremacist to the hilt, and they're like the major leagues of white supremacist gangs. Dirty White Boys, Aryan Resistance Militia, all the other Nazi lowriders, all the other white supremacist gangs are like minor league and JV compared to the Aryan Brotherhood. And this guy has got the brand tattooed right on his cheek. It's a cloverleaf with 666 on it, says AB in the middle. He's down for the struggle. I start talking to him. He's got a praying grandma. All right, Grammy Sue, the most important thing you have ever done for any one of your grandkids, I don't care if you have money to leave them, the most important thing you have ever done for any of your grandkids or great-grandkids is pray. Because this grandma went to the grave praying for her son, and to make a short story sweet, he encountered some crazy loud chaplain on the range, and he prayed to receive Christ as his Savior. God has redeemed the worst of the worst white supremacist prison gang and brought him in to the kingdom, redeemed him from the pit, transferred him from the dominion of darkness into the kingdom of the Son of his love. I went on vacation. I'm on cloud 9. I'm like, you won't believe what I got to do at work. I come back from vacation. I get an email. Open it up. It's like, because the picture of salvation for me was watching tears of repentance stream down over the brand that was tattooed on this man's cheek, the AB symbol. I'm like, you can't get any better than this. Like, it is poetry in real life, in motion, man. I was pumped. I get back, and the email, because I had told my buddy this, who's a believer, he goes, tears of joy all dried up. You've been listed as a staff representative for the inmate. And I go, I don't get it. Like, he got saved. Here's how you know sanctification is a process. One thing that Aryan Brotherhood members cannot do is cell with an individual. They can't put a cellmate in there with them who has done something to hurt a child. Okay? You guys tracking? The cellmate they put in there was he had done things to hurt children in the worst and most despicable kind of way. And my guy was like, listen, I know what you did, just don't talk about it. He goes, man didn't make it 30 minutes. He wouldn't shut up. He was talking. He goes, I don't know what it is about these guys. They just want to brag about their crimes and what they did. And he goes, it's horrible. And he goes, I beat him up. He goes, I know I got saved, but I can't just let this man get away with it, right? So sanctification is a process. And I know it's a process because when I stood before the guy who hears the cases in the prison, he goes, Mr. DHO, disciplinary hearing officer, he goes, Mr. DHO, can I say something off the record? And he's like, sure, whatever, go ahead. He goes, I didn't kill him. Because that would have been the only fitting and proper response. I had given him, when the man got saved, I gave him a Bible. I wrote in the inscription, to inmate such and such on the date of profession of faith in Christ as your Savior. I wrote the date. I signed it from Lewisburg Chapel. He was going to be able to take this Bible with him when he transfers out of here. And I went back to him after all this. I was like, dude, what are you doing? He goes, I had to. I was like, you didn't. He goes, well, I did. And I was like, well, sanctification is a process. You don't just get saved and stop hating people who do horrible things to children. Makes sense to me. He goes, by the way, can I get another Bible? I said, I gave you one. He goes, yeah, but when the officers got down to the cell, they hit me with so much pepper spray, they turned my green Bible orange. So yeah, it was a whole thing. But I say this, to say sanctification is a process. In the life of a believer, you may not be celled with someone that you can't deal with and you can't get along with in that moment, but you're going to encounter people that are going to test your patience. And in seminary, the term that I learned is called EGR, extra grace required. Okay? And you're going to have to deal with people that... And do you have to constantly put yourself over and over into the situation and let yourself get hurt over and over? No, you're not a doormat. But there are instances in our lives as believers where we're going to endure things, and the call will be persevere. And it takes a discerning mind to pray and to get godly counsel and to hear from the Lord. When do I endure? When do I persevere? When is it appropriate to take a step back? What is my relationship with the person as I am committed to discipling, but as I'm walking through my sanctification process? And I can have a voice in that conversation. I'm a pastor. Do I try to provide godly counsel? Absolutely. But these are questions and conversations that you have as you walk through your sanctification life, or your life of sanctification. You work out your salvation with fear and trembling. You do things because you are obedient to God, and you just get into the Word. And I say it like it's simple. It's not. Things that I have wrestled with this week, man, hard stuff. Like, big implications. But you get into the Word, you seek the mind of the Lord, and you read you read James when it says, if you lack wisdom, ask. But come to it, and when you get an answer, don't go, nah, not a fan, try again. Like, here's an instance where you don't get to treat the Bible like a magic 8-ball. Should I endure, or should I walk away? Try again later. No, you don't. If you get an answer, if you get a word, hard as it may be, receive it. So that's what's going on here in the life of Ruth. We finally get going on we find out that he redeems the field. He gets Ruth. We find out that Ruth is the widow of Mahlon. We didn't know that up to this point. He's bought her to be his wife to perpetuate the line of Elimelech so that his name won't be cut off from among the tribes and among the people. And then it says in verse 11 that all the people who were at the gate and the elders, They said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who's coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you act worthily in Ephrathah and be renowned in Bethlehem. May your house be like those of Perez and Tamar, who bore to Judah, because of the offspring of the Lord that will give you by this young woman." Now, I'm not going to get through 13 to 17, which really bugs me because there's a lot of fun there. But it means that next week when we get into the part that most of us skip when we read our Bibles, it's a genealogy, which is boring. Right? I'm going to hopefully show you why that stuff really matters. But here we are, this blessing, this benediction that the people speak over Boaz and Ruth. And they start out by saying, "May the woman who's coming into your house be like Rachel and Leah." And the justification is, who built up the house of Israel. Rachel and Leah are sisters. Rachel's younger and prettier. Leah is older and a little homely, apparently. Okay? It's in the Bible. And their dad is Laban. Jacob wants to marry the hot younger sister. Okay? Laban says, "Fine, I'll give you her in marriage, but you got to work for me for 7 years to earn that's the bride price." Okay? So Jacob works for Laban for 7 years, and the marriage isn't like until it's consummated. Then it's legit and ratified. But there's sheets and there's veils and there's, okay? When Jacob wakes up the next morning, Rachel's not laying beside him in bed, it's Leah. And he goes to Laban, he's like, "Bro, wasn't our agreement." And Laban's pretty slick too. He goes, "Listen, I know nobody's going to marry Leah." He goes, you can have Rachel too, but you got to work for me another 7 years. Okay? So he does that, and then those Rachel and Leah are the women that that give birth to the ones who become the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay? It's about as jacked up as you can get. And that's the blessing. May you be like the two sisters who fought over the same guy. May your womb be like them. And the idea is they want it to be fruitful, but it's kind of a backhanded compliment. I learned in some of my nonsensical government training, I learned this phrase called microaggression. And a microaggression is a backhanded compliment. It'd be like coming up to me and going, "You know, Josh, you don't sweat much for a fat guy." Like that's the idea here. He's like, may your womb be fruitful like the sisters. And then he goes on and he says, may you be like Tamar, who bore to Judah. And if you want a jacked up relationship story, the story of Perez and Tamar, it's in Genesis 38, but a couple people end up dying because they're wicked and evil, and then Tamar dresses up like a prostitute and seduces Judah, and then she gets pregnant, but she gets accused of being immoral, and Judah had given her his robe and his staff and his signet ring, which was basically like giving him his driver's license, last four of his social security, and his mother-in-law's maiden name. So that when Tamar starts to bump a little bit, and they're like, "She's been immoral, she's a harlot," and she's like, I can prove paternity. And she says, "Whoever these things belong to, the signet, the robe, and everything," and it comes out, and it belongs to Judah, because he was like, "I'm going to kill the guy who did this," and then he's like, "It was me." So these are two jacked up scenarios that are in Scripture that are ascribed to like the blessing of Ruth and Boaz's relationship. And it led me to, like, I really pondered, like, why would this even be in here? Why would that be a blessing? And I think the thing that we can learn from this today is, does anyone come from a family who looks, like my family looks more like Al Bundy than Leave It to Beaver? Okay, can anybody relate? You may not come from, right, Mayberry. If God can redeem stories like Perez and Tamar, and Perez now is in the lineage of Jesus as well, if God can redeem a jacked up family situation like that, or from a guy who tricked his son-in-law to marry both his daughters, do you think that there's a chance that he can also do a work in our lives that is greater than the sum total of its parts? Absolutely. Right? I'm a son of a mediocre plumber. And Vince isn't here, which is good. I'm a mediocre preacher at best. right? I just read the Word and I learn the Word and I tell you everything that I learned, because if I think it's awesome, I think you'll think it's awesome. And if I say it loud enough with enough passion, I hope you'll believe me and you'll go, oh, well, that's what the pastor said on Sunday. I believe every word I say up here, 100% of it, all of it. And I want you to not just believe it, but to internalize it and to go from God's words to me to God's words to you, so that when you leave here, you take those words and you say, there's some crazy jacked up stories in the Bible. Like, as you meet people, you're going to meet some crazy jacked up people. As this church does ministry in this community, we're going to meet some crazy jacked up people. But if God can redeem Rachel and Leah and Jacob and Tamar and Perez and Judah, he can do something inside of us and in us, redeem us, and then through us, redeem them too. And that's the grand arc that God is getting at inside this story. We are all crazy jacked up people. Before we, well, that's not the amen part, okay? Before we knew God, we are all, and even after, because sanctification is a process. God is doing works in us to do works through us, okay? We are always on an ebb and flow journey. Like, I say ebb and flow up and down. It's more like back and forth. Some days, man, I'm so close to God I can smell His breath. Some days I'm so far away from God I feel cold because the warmth of heaven it's just not present. And I don't know if you guys can know it, but I'm telling you, I'm the guy standing up here yelling at you from behind a pulpit. And some days my relationship with Lord goes, it waxes and it wanes. It feels like the tides on the ocean. But man, I know I've got an anchor for my soul, and that anchor is stuck fast in my Redeemer. And that when I get far away, He draws that rope tight, and I don't like the way it feels because no discipline seems pleasant at the time. But He disciplines those He loves, and He brings us back into line. And He does it through however He does it with you. For me, it's His Word. I just get down to praying. And I go, God, here's what's going on in my life. And then I do something that I don't do very often. I shut up and I listen. And it's in those moments of silence and solitude with the Lord that I'm going, God, here's my major problem this week. And He goes, you think that's your major problem this week? Let me tell you something. And those are the things that He reveals to me before I come to this table. Those are the things that He does in my heart. He says, this is what I need you to lay down this week. Your stupid mouth and your stupid pride keeps getting in the way of you because you talk too much and you don't listen enough. And this week, man, the listening, I've had to do some major listening. It takes a lot of humility to shut your mouth when you think you're running something. But you've heard me testify most of the time, I'm not running nothing but my mouth. So when we can close this hole in the front of our face and open up the two on the side of our head, and we do so with the intent to block out other distractions, but to just hear from the Lord. If you just get in here and you just start reading. Guys, if you need wisdom, there's an entire book of it. It's called Proverbs. Open it up and run those Proverbs through the situations of your life. You will be better for it. So, back to that guy. Back to what's his name? Mr. So-and-so. He had the right and he had the resources, but he didn't have the resolve. Our Redeemer has the right, has the resources, and the resolve. And what He has done for all of us, He became sin on our behalf. He didn't know any sin, and He became sin on our behalf so that through Him we would become the righteousness of God. The crazy jacked up people that we look at here and go, man, Springer ain't got nothing on Genesis 38. The reality is, we're more Al Bundy than Leave It to Beaver. And God died for me. And God died for you. Because the field that I had, the land that I had that was sitting fallow, that no one else wanted and no one else was working, God looked at me and goes, not just the field, but I want all the weeds and all the rocks and everything else that's in it. God goes, for everyone else, it looks like a scrap heap. It looks like an overgrown piece of dirt. God goes, full price. I know what it's worth. I know what's underneath the weeds. I know what's under the rocks. And he has either redeemed or made the offer of redemption for every single one of us. And he did so not because we deserve it, but because he's good. So that's where we're going to end up this week. We're going to finish up next week with a genealogy. It's going to be awesome. So don't skip because I'm going to go begat, 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 begat. Okay? Once you get to the end of the begats, it's Jesus. So it's worth showing up for. This is also a one more Sunday month. So at the end of this month, that person you've been praying for, bring them to church, and I will make a deal with you. Okay? This is entirely transactional. You just bring them to church. I will tell them about Jesus and try to hook them and reel them in. Okay? That way, all you got to do is just extend the invitation. Or pick them up and drive them here. That way they don't have an excuse. But we're going to sing a closing hymn. I know, right? And we're going to come to the table. And we're going to talk about the price that Jesus paid because he had the right, the resources, and the resolve. And he did it willingly for every single one of us so that there's not one person left that doesn't have a seat at his table because of who he is in spite of who we are. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for your word and for your goodness and for your grace. God, I thank you that this book, when we open it up, everything from Genesis 1:1 till Jesus, it all points to him. And God, that you've laid these foreshadows, these illusions in your word to show us the need for redemption here, but God, our ultimate need for redemption for all time. And you made that possible through your Son when you sent him to this earth. And he became like us so that he would understand our plight. He knows what we have been through. And God, it's not just that he's been through it, but that he endured it perfectly, giving us a model to follow as well. I thank you for your grace and for each of the men and women who are here in this sanctuary who have benefited from your sacrifice in the same way. In Christ's name, amen.